we make, we just rob ourselves,
Right.
you know, from the,
But, you know,
so
it-
it's
it's the
only-
but we're saving on, just by the fact that possibly, depending upon the weather, we won't be indebting ourselves going forward a year forward. So, I mean, that's kind of a, I mean, it's kind of a squishy number anyway. I mean, yeah, we can save on putting less salt on, or not plowing as often or as early, or something like that, but depending upon the weather, like this year, what are we, almost $400,000 in the hole, before we even start?
Yeah.
You know, so it's,
With 300 and something.
yeah, 305?
I checked the number,
Okay, but it's,
this afternoon.
okay, we're $300,000.
Subject to,
But I mean,
Some more stones.
the number floats because the DOR allows it to float, but the fact of the matter is, sooner or later, you gotta pay the piper.
you
Right.
pay it the following,
You
you
pay
pay
it
it
the
right
following
off
year.
the,
It comes right off the cherry
tax
sheet.
free cash.
Right, so either way, you're paying it, but.
It comes right off the cherry sheet, so there really isn't a
They,
realization of savings.
I don't know if this is when you want to comment on some of these, Bob, but I would be adamantly opposed to this, not only because I live on one of these side streets, but I cannot see putting the whole town, other than if you live on the main road, in jeopardy of sliding on the ice and having an accident. You know, we are known for the excellent job we do on our roads, and I could not support any cutbacks on public safety as far as
I am in
the snow and salt on the roads,
110%
you know. Yeah, no, I know, I
Somebody-
know.
List,
Yep,
okay?
and I
yep.
think
And
what
I
you have to
hope
keep in.
some of the board members could come up with some other ideas, okay?
Well, but, you know, what, I think what people have to look at when they talk about these items is that, you know, you have to be careful and not be short-sighted, okay? I mean, when you're talking about safety of the streets, you're talking about the library, when you're talking about recreation, you're talking about the same group of people that you're talking about when you're talking about the schools. You're talking about our kids on the street, you're talking about our kids at the library, you're talking about our kids in recreation programs. So it's, you know, I think we have to find a way to balance all of the above. But you don't have my proposal up there, so, you know,
Well, you'll have your opportunity.
all right, okay.
Unknowns. Additional Chapter 70 funding. I mean, right now, I think most of us feel comfortable that the Chapter 70 number will hold up. Typically, it does. It may go up a little bit. The actual town health insurance cost currently budgeted at 15% because we don't have a final figure for next year. And hope to have it by this evening. Hasn't happened yet. So, just to put in perspective, last year, the percentage increase was 12%. And a 1% increase or decrease is worth $47,000. So keep our fingers crossed. If it was 12%, we'd have almost $150,000 that could be applied to our operating expenses. Additional lottery funding. You know, when the governor's budget came out, we took a hit of $100,000 in our estimated lottery receipts, which we based on last year's numbers. Doesn't look like the governor said that would be replaced if the legislature passed his casino bill. We all can chuckle over that. So we're not counting on that, but you know, who knows? And then the Volk school assessment, we're trying to get a better figure on that, and I already brought that up in the town administrator's numbers, that the fact that the assessment appeared to be reduced is not that believable. So let's talk a little bit about what we do have. Currently, as we go into April town meeting, we have $180,000 in free cash. Now, typically, free cash is, well, first of all, free cash is generated by a surplus or increased revenue over what we've estimated, or expenditures that we don't make. At the end of the year, what's left is audited and certified by the state, becomes free cash. And it's prudent that we use free cash for capital items, non-occurring capital items. We have $180,000 this April in free cash, which is more than we've had in the past 3 or 4 years. We are in the process of upgrading our accounting system to the Munis system, which is used throughout the state. It covers both school and town, and we budgeted that money in capital expenditure a year and a half ago. We find as a result of our efforts that we're missing a purchase requisition module and some additional implementation resources. So we're going to be putting in the April town warrant, coming out of free cash, $50,000 to cover that cost. In the reductions, the $184,000 reductions that the town administrator made early on to get to a 3% budget, he removed the police cruiser, and we really need to put that police cruiser in, so we will be paying for that out of free cash. And we have a couple of unknowns. We all know that our fuel costs are going up, and it's been a colder winter than certainly last year. And right now, it's a little too early to tell because we're not over budget in those areas, but we may need to supplement both of those budgets. Now, the good news on the heat side is both the school and the town buildings, for the most part, are heated with gas, and we have contracts that, and I think we have contracts for fuel. Mr. Hannon maybe help us with that. David, do we have a fuel contract, or is that scalable too, for gasoline and diesel?
It's fixed,
It's fixed?
yeah, but the purpose of it is just like our salt,
Yeah.
commodities that
And then
we're locked into this year.
then we have the snow and ice, which I talked about earlier, that in years past, we were way over our snow and ice so that we don't take the hit the following year, because it would come off of next year's. We've supplemented some of the snow and ice in the past out of free cash. We haven't made any decisions on it, but then there's some school items that will show up on here as we go forward. There's probably some town items. One of the school items has been their funding of the technology budget, and things like that will draw from free cash. Yes?
The reason why they're fixed is for the year, what we're finding out is two things we want to do for the year of absorption is the current. There's a lot of push from vendors that, for example, pavement, service, back on us wanting to do the 1 year of the year fixed. And they want to put escalators. In no way do we see escalators that would work for us as opposed to work against us for the long haul.
Yeah.
So we basically have stayed with fixed costs.
Questions? Just so, in case there's some questions, because I'm sure that Phil's got a proposal that has some impact on this. And in fact, I have, the town administrator is recommending that we take $150,000 out of this by lowering the debt, the cap on the debt. But the debt stabilization fund, which we created in October, we transferred $404,250 into the fund. At this coming October's meeting, the plan was to transfer into the fund $531,000, which we have, but it's not certified free cash yet. And this is money that, with the help of Representative Jones and Senator Tarr, the town received as a percentage of the sale of the Berry property. In other words, this is money that the state received when they sold the property, when they collected for half of that property. And we got 20% of that money minus the state's minus 20% of the cost that they had of executing the sale. And that was $531,000, and the intent was to put that money into the debt stabilization fund. Additionally, as part of the 40R incentive, the state owes us $1.218 million. You've probably read about that a couple times when they didn't have the funding. We still don't have that money. They managed to, every time we turn around, ask for something else. And whether or not we get that money if we don't get that money this year, we will, and let's say it comes in next year, it won't go in October. It'll go in the following October because it'll be certified free cash, and then unless the state has gives us some means of circumventing that. Anyway, the fact that it doesn't get in there for another year is not a problem unless we decide to disperse that money rather than use it to pay for this cap on the debt service, because the amount that we need to cap the debt service is a small proportion of the total. I just wanted to bring that up so people know where we are with that. And the purpose of the debt stabilization fund was to leverage borrowing for important capital projects. Cap non-exempt debt service at $960,000, permitting more money to flow to school and general government operating expenses. Currently, it's being used to cover borrowing required to fund Eisenhower's settlements and approve borrowing in October 2007 town meeting. And unfortunately, the Eisenhower land acquisition has cost us more than the $1.8 million that was originally raised, probably by more than $2 million more before it's all said and done. So it's important that we maintain that, or we will take a hit by having to put more money into the fixed cost portion of the budget, which means less to distribute between town and school. Keep that in mind. I just thought I'd bring this up. This is the proposed school budget. I've kind of organized it a little differently than it was presented at the school meeting, but the available funds budget, in other words, taking into account the shortfall and not filling that gap on the school side, right? Basically, they would be reducing their current staff by 8.3 positions for the tune of $350,000, and they would be taking $35,000 of additional money by raising athletic fees. So that's the impact if we don't close this gap. I mean completely. The change for status quo, that $400,000 number, is what we had asked the superintendent to identify as the impact, and it's roughly 8.3 positions. On the status quo budget, the in other words, the status quo assumes that the school budget gets fully funded, and that, with the exception of $35,000, which they have committed to raise by raising some of the athletic fees. Then they turned around and came up with a recommended budget. The recommended budget was to replace the cuts that were made last year, in addition to adding some programs. As you recall, in their override budget last year, they wanted to add some staffing to deal with class size and a number of other things. So this is what they presented, and this is what the school committee has signed off on as of, I believe, 1 week ago Monday. And to fund that, the increase over the status quo budget is $870,910. And my understanding is that they would be proposing and asking the board to approve putting